First thing I want to get into today, happy Valentine's Day to those who celebrate, by the way. The first thing I want to get into today is, there's been a lot of talk about legacies when it comes to the aftermath of the Super Bowl. And first thing I'll talk about is the big elephant in the room is Mahomes and winning his third Super Bowl. Um, 28 years old, never seen before, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, hasn't happened since the 2003, 2004 Patriots. I think Mahomes, this has officially cemented his place as a top three quarterback all time already at 28 years old. I mean, that's incredible. He's the most talented quarterback I have probably ever seen. And this has been the case, I feel like, for the last few years of him being the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. Before him was probably Rodgers, and then probably, beginning of second season in, as a starter, this guy was something different to see, and he definitely took on that role of being the most talented quarterback I've ever seen, in year two as a starter. So I don't think those things are really debatable when it comes to Mahomes and what he's accomplished already in his career. Um, but this transitions to something that I think is very debatable, and it's the Brady Mahomes discussion. And Mahomes has he's done some things that Brady, did early in his career. Uh, just thinking about before turning 30, both these guys, their playoff stats. Let me just tell you them right now. Mahomes had 18 games, 5,000 yards, passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 3 Super Bowls, and 3 Super Bowl MVPs. Brady, 14 playoff games, 3,000 passing yards, 20 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 3 Super Bowl championships, and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. And looking at the stats right now, you'd say he's on track to pass Brady. And that is the case. I do believe Mahomes has probably had the best 6 year run as a starter in the NFL. But, this leads into a bigger topic that I mentioned in kind of, you know, sprinkled in at the end of the episode for the first one, and that is the most important Super Bowl in NFL history has already happened in the past, the present, and the future. The most important Super Bowl in the NFL has already happened. And that Super Bowl is Super Bowl 58 between the Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs, where the Buccaneers won 31-9. It was Brady versus Mahomes. Brady won his seventh ring, and Mahomes lost his first Super Bowl appearance and only had one ring at that point. And the reason why I say it's the most important Super Bowl in NFL history, past, present, or even in the future, it's because it's the Brady and Mahomes, discussion that has already taken off and taken life of its own, but will continue to be like this if Mahomes continues to win Super Bowls, which I think he will. But this is Brady versus Mahomes. Brady, first year on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 40 something years old, and he leads Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Super Bowl and wins it. Okay. Mahomes is going for the back to back at that point. He beat the 49ers in 2020. He was trying to beat the Buccaneers in 2021, looking for a second Super Bowl and back to back. Didn't end up happening. Brady wins his seventh. Mahomes is stuck at one. And if you fast forward now to Mahomes having three and already won a back to back, against the Eagles and then beating the 49ers this past Sunday, Mahomes is three and Brady is seven. If Mahomes had won that Super Bowl, Mahomes would have four, Brady would have six. It's two away. But since Brady won, Brady has seven and Mahomes only has three. That's a four Super Bowl difference. Four is bigger than two. So I mean that's double what the gap is now since Brady won that Super Bowl. And it's gonna be so hard for I think people and even myself to put Mahomes above Brady unless he wins 8 Super Bowls. Definitively, if he wins 8 Super Bowls, he's the greatest, player of all time. And that's crazy to even talk about right now. I mean, that he needs five more Super Bowls for that to even happen. But on track, he could do it. I mean, he's got three before 28. So, I mean, before 30. So, um, I do believe, though, that Mahomes isn't going to win back to back every year. I mean, this is the National Football League. Injuries happen all the time. Players leave. Players ask for more money. They don't get it. Players get traded. Draft picks don't hit. They've been in a ton of draft picks on the defensive side of the ball with Karlaftis and McDuffie. So, that defense has gotten a lot better, especially since the offense has taken a dip this year. So, I mean, Mahomes for definitively, and this might not be the case for me, but I'm just saying Mahomes would need a total of 8 Super Bowls to absolutely definitively pass Brady and have no discussions about it and not be able to say, well, Brady's got 7, Mahomes only has 4 or 5 or even 6. Brady still beat Mahomes at 40 years old on Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his first season in Tampa Bay. So it's just gonna be so hard for Mahomes to pass Brady. And Mahomes has even mentioned it too. He said, you know, Brady beat me. Brady beat me in that Super Bowl. So it's gonna be hard for, you know, someone to take Brady down and for me to catch up to Brady because he beat me in a Super Bowl. I know this isn't basketball, they're not going one on one or head to head, but you get the gist of it of, when people say head to head matchups in the NFL, this is the head to head matchup, and Mahomes lost that matchup. So that's why I think it's the most important Super Bowl in NFL history. Uh, Arguably the two greatest players of all time when it's all said and done play off in a Super Bowl. One was 40 years old. The other, the other was, wasn't even 28, 27, 29, 30, whatever you want, whatever number you want to give Mahomes. He wasn't even at that age yet. So, um, but it's just going to be so difficult for Mahomes to do it. He's going to need 8. I mean, he's got 3. He needs 5 more. So we'll see what happens. But now I want to move on to the San Francisco 49ers of things and where they go from here. There's been a lot of talk about Kyle Shanahan, his inability to win big games, his inability to beat the Chiefs, his inability to get over the hump necessarily, and that he's just not cut out for those big games and those big moments. And he just can't get that monkey off his back. And the same kind of stigma that's being put on Shanahan was put on another coach, and this coach actually played Kyle Shanahan in the Super Bowl, and it was Andy Reid. Um, Andy Reid had that monkey on his back for so long, couldn't win the big game, couldn't get to the Super Bowl, couldn't do it. Let me just remind people what Andy Reid's resume was before he went to Kansas City and won with the Chiefs. 2001 NFC Championship loss, 2002 NFC Championship loss, 2003 NFC Championship loss, 2004 he gets the Super Bowl, but he loses the Super Bowl. He didn't win his first Super Bowl till 2019. 2019, 15-year gap between Super Bowls for Andy Reid. Had that same monkey in his back. And now Andy Reid's got 3 Super Bowls, and we're considering him top 3, top 5, even the best coach of all time with Belichick. And I will say, Kyle Shanahan has that same type of resume. 2019 Super Bowl loss, 2021 NFC Championship loss, 2022 NFC Championship loss, 2023 gets the Super Bowl again, but he loses it. Now, I'm not saying 15 years from now, Kyle Shanahan was going to win his first Super Bowl, but I'm just saying the same stigma that is being put on Kyle Shanahan was put on Andy Reid 15 years ago, 15, 16 years ago, 20 years ago at this point. And I do believe Kyle Shanahan will get back to the Super Bowl and eventually win it. I think he's too good of a coach, too good of an offensive schemer. He's got too many, you know, studs and Hall of Famers on his roster that I just think it's gonna be so hard for him not to get back there and eventually win the Super Bowl. Now, I don't think it's gonna happen with this group, with the Kittle, the Ayuk, the CMC, the Debo, the Bosa, the Fred Warners, and the Chase Youngs. I don't think it's gonna happen with that group. I think eventually that group is going to dissolve. Ayuk has already been talked about wanting to get paid, and he doesn't know if it's going to happen with the 49ers. And Ayuk is their only legit wide receiver that can actually make deep routes, catch deep balls. He might not be there next year. And a lot of these guys have injury history. George Kittle's got injury history. CMC's got injury history. Debo Samuel's got injury history. Bosa's got injury history. Brock Purdy, you're gonna have to pay him. You can't pay him this offseason because you drafted him. You're gonna have to wait till next offseason. But when you start paying him, which I think they will, and they think they should pay him, You're going to start losing some of these guys. You're not going to have a Fred Warner. You're not going to have a Dre Greenlaw. I know he just got injured in the Super Bowl as well. He tore his Achilles just walking on the field. And I know this was the year for the 49ers. Everything had lined up, no injuries, and everyone got to Super Bowl healthy. For the most part, I know Ufangu wasn't in the Super Bowl, but he's a big piece of the 49ers. But for the most part, everyone was there, and they couldn't get over the hump. So I do think that the 49ers are going to take a little bit of a dip. I do think in a few years they will be back. And that is partly because the NFC is so weak. I mean, the only legit contender you could say, or only two legit contenders you can say is the Lions, excuse me, and the Philadelphia Eagles. 49ers have beaten both of them, and they can't beat both of them again. So, and who knows what happens with Nick Sirianni in that situation. Maybe Lions, it was just a miracle story and they don't get back there. Maybe they lose their coordinators the next couple of years. Maybe they won't get back there. And who knows what happens with these other teams. But as of right now, those are the only two threats to get to the Super Bowl between the 49ers. So I do think that they will get back there, but I just don't think with this group, with these core guys, I think injuries are gonna happen. And I don't want to wish any injuries on anybody, but I don't see it happening. And contracts, people leave, people want to get traded, people want to get paid. Ayuk, I think will want to get paid. I think the 49ers will pay him, but they're gonna have to start cutting other guys or not paying other guys as well. So I do think the 49ers need to also do a little bit of a rebuild with their offensive line. They're getting a lot older. I do think that will become a problem eventually for the 49ers. So they need to start addressing that. And some of these guys that are going to be leaving, like maybe Fred Warner does leave. I mean, he's the heart and soul of that entire team, but I mean, he wants to get paid and he deservedly so should get paid. So we'll have to see what happens with the 49ers, but I think this is the year. I think this is the year for most of these teams. Chiefs were kind of down, kind of wounded, and they somehow still went back to back, and everyone else is going back to the drawing board, which, leads me into, the next few weeks. NFL Combine's coming up, NFL free agency's coming up, trades, draft picks. We'll get into all that eventually. Um, Time for everyone to start regrouping and try to go take down the back-to-back champs. And NBA All-Star Weekend is also this weekend as well. So be talking about that here next few shows, maybe even next show, in Indiana. NBA is starting to make that final push to the playoffs. So we'll see what happens.